It has been said that America has no culture, no mythology, and no heroes. All of that is false. And you'll find it if you know where to look. Because from as far as I could tell, they don't actually teach any of this stuff anymore. But America does have mythology. It does have tall tales. Some of these revolve around the sport of baseball, America's national pastime. And I can't begin to tell you where American history actually starts and where baseball's history actually starts. Well, it's somewhat after the Civil War. But baseball is entwined with American politics, with American culture, and with the American experience more than anything I can even think of. Every politician has to be able to throw a baseball if they want to be president, because God help you if you can't throw a pitch. At least that's the way it used to be. I'm not sure anymore. But there's something about baseball and throwing a baseball back and forth that just reminds you of playing catch with your dad. It's an experience every American male will know by heart. And old people love baseball because baseball reminds them of a time when the old America existed. Not that they remember, it's the old America their parents and grandparents experienced. They got to have the nice afterglow of it, and they remember it. And baseball documentaries remember this time. They tell the American story at the same time they tell the baseball history. And we watch these documentaries, you might swear these guys might have been in charge back then, because I swear gambling houses and casinos were everywhere. And trying to discourage that behavior was actually a thing they used to do in the stadiums. So you know it had to be a bad problem back then for people to actually bet in the stadiums. And I'm sure old people get high risk for that long forgotten experience that young people no longer know of, and increasingly gets worse and worse with time. I mean, a perfect example of today's times is circus animals. They no longer exist. They existed when I was a kid. Going to the circus when I was a kid meant you got to see elephants and tigers jumping through fire hoops and a bear doing a balancing act. Not sure why you go to the circus anymore. And I think old people also remember the time Hollywood could actually tell a story that actually had a complex story in it that only native English speakers could understand. Not this lowest common denominator stuff they produce these days. No, not this stuff meant for foreign audiences. No, they actually had American pro wrestlers who would be unapologetically patriotic and didn't matter who they were angering. They would tell you they're fighting for the rights of every man, making political statements actively against the Soviet Union. These days, these guys apologize to China for making them slightly upset. I think old people see that and they wonder what in the world's happened to the country. And there's one thing that they like is they like the ability to see nice stories. They remember the days when movies used to be good and worth watching. Some of these you could still watch today because they're classics, because you know what? They didn't try to have mass appeal. They went to a specific audience and said, here's your appeal. And every 12-year-old boy back then had so many different movies to pick from. And I think old people also miss the fact that they used to actually get credit for the progress they made. Now, these days, why, you might as well have not made progress at all with the way a lot of critics think of these people. And it's just sad and unfortunate for old people because that's the America they remember and sometimes the America they don't remember. There's not much focus on the actual other changes they made and some of the problems baseball kept continuing, like the chewing tobacco epidemic. But baseball is also one of those sports still to this day you might witness a fist fight. You might witness a bench-clearing brawl. It's an interesting aspect of a sport that, for the most part, to the most Americans these days, can consider it somewhat boring. But if you do watch enough baseball, if you do attend enough games, when you do pass on, they'll actually remember you in the news. And that's the problem, though. Baseball fans are getting few and far between. They're not filling the stadiums up like they used to. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not really intending this video to get into all that. In fact, I'll have a later video to address that topic. But I can tell you, baseball does get boring. But as an experience of going to the ballpark, that's what we hearken to. That's what we remember. Because Americans suffer from amnesia. Our memory is not that long. I think at best maybe 10 years can we remember anything. We'll forget stuff all the time, and baseball suffers from amnesia as well. They still don't remember the days when they weren't the number one sport. They're not the number one sport now. They think of themselves as the number one sport, but at one point boxing was, and one point horse racing was, and baseball had to overcome them, and they don't remember how they did it anymore. And there are some people that are pointing this out. There are also some people that are pointing out a way to fix it and are actually fixing the problem. But we'll get onto them in another video. What I want to talk about now is the experience of the baseball game, going to a baseball game, getting a beer. It's a tale as old as time, an experience as old as time. It's classic. Your grandfather did it, you did it. You're going to get some interesting food. You're going to get to drink some beer. You're going to get to watch some baseball and have casual conversation with your friends. And then somehow somebody's going to score a run, or some home run's going to get hit, or somebody's going to get struck out, and the crowd's going to go wild, and you're going to join in the going wild as well. Who knows? You're going to be scarfing down a lot of food, chewing on a lot of bubble gum, eating a giant 3-foot-long hot dog that you don't know why in the world they made a hot dog that big in the first place, but you don't care because you're going to buy one. It don't matter if it's like $40. You got the money. You hear a guy yelling that there's cold beer for sale, you're going to get his attention, and you're going to buy some of those terrible stadium nachos you'd never make at home. You're also going to get some Cracker Jacks, and you might spill your food, because the other fun thing about going to the ballpark is you're not just buying a baseball ticket. Sometimes you get a free gift, if you're willing to go for it, and if you're lucky enough to get one. And baseball has so many games that there's some dates and some teams are so terrible they know nobody's going to go to, so they have to give away items and gifts like baseball cards, bobbleheads, jerseys, socks, maybe some figurines like these dots that race that you can bet on. Well, not really bet on. And maybe you'll see the Freeze beat some guy with a head start in a sprint. Maybe you'll see the sausage race go on. There's all kinds of fun in between inning entertainment at baseball games that you can only see if you're at the ballpark. It's always a fun experience, and it's just the American experience to actually go to a game. You never know what you're going to see. You never know what kind of fun is going to happen. And I think that's why the American dream is still built on baseball. We had a lot of video games back in the day, way too many to mention. We had this cool pinball machine that if you hit a home run gave you baseball cards. That was the coolest pinball machine in the entire arcade. It always had a line to play it. And board games in baseball, I can't even begin to tell you how many board games are associated with baseball. Way too many. It's ridiculous. And we're going to show one this video. But the truth of the matter is, baseball is no longer just an American thing. It has exported itself. It may be the only thing America ever successfully exported, or at least we can remember, because as far as we know now, do we export anything in this country anymore? It doesn't seem like we do. But it's all over the world now, at least the limited parts of the world. Now, I'm sure I could already hear soccer feeling bad for us, but the truth of the matter is, Americans never think about soccer as it is anyways. We just think about baseball and all our other sports. So I want to welcome you to How to Play Small Ball. It's a game for 2 players. It was a print and play that you could print yourself as part of a single card challenge. And just like the Oscars and the Grammys, the actual talented and best productions did not win as usual. So expect to see this game being one of the better games in that contest. And if you are unfamiliar with the rules of baseball and the rudimentary basics of baseball, do not worry. Just like these guys in the video, your ignorance will soon be corrected by the guy sitting in front of you at the stadium, who will turn around and then tell you and describe in perfect detail the basics of baseball. And I have that link to that video in the description. When you start this game, you're going to have your laminated sheet, and you're going to see at the top, you're going to see a lineup that's going to show who your batter is, and under the color-coded grid, you're going to see what the response is with each single die row. And just like real baseball, your best batters bat in the start of the lineup, and they progressively get a little bit better, then a lot worse when the pitcher gets up. On the reverse side is all the rules, and don't worry if you don't understand any of this at the moment. I'm going to explain it to you as if you know nothing about baseball. So the first thing that we see is a strikeout. This is the most obvious thing. It's basically when a pitcher is going to throw a third strike, the batter is going to be out. Any base runners will not be affected by this unless there's 2 outs, then they'd clear the bases. So in this case, there's nobody on base, we'll record an out. A ground out. Now, if there's nobody on base, you're just going to record an out automatically. This is essentially what's happening. The ball's getting hit on the ground, and you're being thrown out before you reach base. Therefore, you're out. So you're just going to record an out. However, if you have a runner at first, you get a ground out. That's essentially going to be 2 outs. You're going to be hitting into a double play. And that's just basically what it looks like in the real world, is somebody's going to field the ball, throw to second, get the runner from first out, who has to reach second before the ball reaches second. And, of course, the runner at first out on a forced out by beating the runner to the base. And so then you're going to take the runner off and record 2 outs. So then the other thing that you might see is a base on balls, a double B, which is essentially a walk. When you get a 4th ball, if you have the bases loaded, somebody's going to come to score. Runners are forced to advance a base. But if you're by yourself, you're just going to walk to first, and nothing else is going to happen. Now, At the same time, if you have runners on base, these are the scenarios. Say you have a guy on third, nothing happens. You just put a runner on first because there's nothing compelling the runner to advance. It's only when the bases are loaded or you have a runner at first already would you advance a runner on base because he's forced to go to the next base. Let's say somebody's at second. Again, there's no force for somebody to then go to third base. There's no reason for him to go on a walk. So you're just going to walk to first. Now let's say you have a runner on first and second. Well, in this case, there is an impetus for the runner on second to go to third on a walk. You'll just record it as bases loaded. Now, once you got bases loaded, the same scenario that we showed you in the video, everybody's then going to, one runner's going to score, everybody else is going to occupy base. So you just leave things the same and you record an out run to be banked. Excuse me. And so that run to be banked in this game, it's interesting. Unlike actual baseball, you have to either push your luck and try to hit on the third out. In this case, let's say we have 2 outs already. Any base hit, your runners are going to advance 1 extra base than just 1. So in this case, we're going to advance a guy from first all the way to third because we did a hit and run. And that's basically what you're going to do in this game. Normally, you must decide in this game, and only in this game, not actual baseball, if you have any runs to be banked, if you want to score them, you'll either have to call it before the third out and advance the batting order accordingly, as if you did get the third out, or you can push your luck and try to score with 2 outs. Now, most of the time, you're going to get an out in this game. So if you have a runner at second, he would score. If you had a runner at first and second, the runner at first would go to third, and the batter would go to first, and you would score 1 run. If you get an FO, it's a fly out. On flyouts, if you have a runner at third, he will advance, and you'll get 1 out with the batter. You'll need to record that as a run to be banked. Did not show that on the animation for some reason. So essentially, you get a flyout. The guy's going to tag up and go home. Now, the batter will be out, but the runner will be safe at home, so you'll remove both the batter and the runner. Your bases will be empty. Let's say you want to hit for a sacrifice. That's that black area. You can call this at any time with any batter. Most of the time, they're going to get a sacrifice, either bunt or a fly out, and runners are going to advance 1 base. Both runners are going to advance 1 base. So here we're just going to see a sacrifice bunt. We get a guy from second to go to third, and that's basically what a sacrifice is. The batter will be out, but you will have advanced your runner from second to third. And why I'm not recording that, who knows. So if you had a runner at third, he would automatically go home on a sacrifice. So now let's say stolen base. Now this game treats every runner as if he was Ricky Henderson, and most of the time he's not going to get caught stealing. You can advance any runner to the next base without taking any risk from the batter, so there's no potential get out on the batter. It's just the runner's going to get out. Now if the runner is the third out, you will then keep that same batter in the lineup. But yeah, you might want to just review the rudimentary rules of baseball. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have 3 coins because I didn't feel like taking and writing the outs. You see I've managed to blow this card up because the single poker card size was just way too small. So I got a 6. That means I've struck out. So now I'm going to advance the lineup. I had red batting. Now it's going to be green next. So I'm going to put my dime right there to signal that yellow or green is now the batter. I'll have an out, which I'll record for some reason in a marker as opposed to a coin. I guess I didn't grab enough coins. So now I managed to get a double with green. So now yellow's turn to bat, and I got a 4. So in this case, I have flied out. I'm going to take my second out. I did not advance on a fly out from second. This game does not allow you to do it. Now, had I called a sacrifice, I would have easily advanced that runner. So now, I think I'm going to try to hit, but I got a 1 with orange, and that means I got a double. So I advanced 2 bases on the batter and 2 bases on the runner, so I banked 1 run, so I'm going to stop there. My next batter should be green again or yellow when I advance. I'm not sure I did that right. This is one thing that you will have a lot to keep up with in this game is remembering batting order. If you're familiar with baseball, it won't be difficult. If not, don't worry too much about it. I don't really think it's going to affect this game. So I've managed to bank my runs. That means my opponent is now rolling. They are going through advancing their runners based on the result of the die. They're doing pretty well for themselves. They got 1 out. Oh, they struck out, so now there's 2. So now they can no longer pull a sacrifice, so now they're on a hit and run, so everybody's going to advance an extra base. That should not have been a bases loaded scenario. It should have got them 2 runs, but I don't think I really recalled the hit and run rule at the time, so they're going to bank their 1 run. So they should have gotten 2 on that. And now we're going to advance to the top of the 2nd inning. It'll be the top portion of the lineup's turn. Yellow will be batting. We managed to get a base hit. So now, we got a double. So now it'll be Green's turn to bat, and he manages to get on first with a base hit. That means the runner from second will advance to third. Oh, now we've scored a run, and we got an interference from a fan. Well, it was a cat, so we had to get him off the field. And then we're just going to advance the lineup. Now we're bases loaded with 1 out. And so we got the pitcher. We're going to call for a sacrifice here, I think. So I'm reviewing the rules real quick. So, yeah, I'm going to call a sacrifice, and I got it. So everybody advances a base. Then we record a second out. We clear them because we're going to bank those outs. And it should be orange at bat on the next turn. So now we're at the bottom of the 2nd, the opponent's turn again. They're taking their roles. They're advancing accordingly. They've gotten 2 outs. They get a base hit, which meant that should have been double, but for some reason we just didn't record that right. So they got their 3rd out, no points scored, no runs scored, and we go back to the top portion of the card. It is the opponent's turn. He gets a triple out of the deal, or gets 2 hits on base and a double. So they advance to 3rd, and we're playing this game pretty fast. So one of the things I can tell you about this game, just if you don't know the rudimentary rules of baseball, play a baseball video game for about a week, if that. You should understand the extreme basics of baseball. Double check the rules on the card. Remember when you have 2 outs and you're taking the risk because you don't have any runs to gain. If you bank them, go ahead and remember the hit and run rule. I think I missed that when I was recording this. It's probably about the 2nd time I played this game. And so I wasn't too sure on the hit and run rule, and I printed them up on the poker size, and I could not read that card all the way for some reason. But when I blew it up to a larger size, it was much easier to use, much easier to play with. I had a much easier time just reading things and recording things. And I think the only thing is when you're banking runs, remember to advance the lineup. If that is somewhat of a chore to remember, okay, if I would have had a 3rd out, this guy would have been out at the plate, and then you can just bank those runs. Or you could then claim, if you want, you can claim if you have a runner, that runner got caught stealing for the 3rd out, so you then keep the lineup the same. So there's a lot of choices to make in this game, I think, with just playing with your own house rules, how you want to treat the situation. Because of the press your luck element, which I think is the only thing that makes this game really different than a lot of other baseball games out there, is that you can decide to try to get more runs. But it's such a huge risk because most of the time, as you get later on the lineup, most of your players are going to be an automatic out. And with 2 outs, getting a base hit, for example, on the purple, the pitcher, is going to be 1 out of 6. Everything else is an out. For the blue, it's going to be 2 out of 6. For the orange, it's going to be half. It's going to be 50-50. For yellow, it's also 50-50. Except for yellow has, not too many advantages. Orange actually has every hit is a double, and the only single is a walk. For green, there is 2 out of 6 results are going to be good. The 4 out of 6 are going to be outs. And for red, it's 50-50. So you're going from 50-50 to about 2 out of 6 to 50-50 again, back to 50-50. And then you get 2 out of 6, then 1 out of 6. Unless, of course, you do the sacrifice or stolen base. The stolen base is 4 times out of 6 you're going to be successful. So now we're at the top of the 7th inning. We must sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" and all that, and just live with the baseball tradition when you're playing this by yourself. If you want to just simulate your opponent's move by playing both opponents to see which team wins. Something you can do. It's kind of interesting to constantly be thinking about just the offensive side of the ball, and there's no real defense in this game. There's no real interaction. It's just kind of a 2-player solitaire, essentially, since there's no real input from the person who doesn't have the dice. And it's all just depends on where the dice lands, and if you make a decision to steal a base or not steal a base, to sacrifice or not sacrifice, And to take a player off your bench, you notice you'll have 2 bench players. There's one called a power hitter, and the power hitter essentially, the batter advances 2 additional bases on a hit. So if he hits a first base, he gets to all the way to third. If he hits a double, then that would be a home run essentially. And you also have an on-base bench player where a strikeout results in a hit. So in that case, with the on-base player, anywhere you use them on any point on the field, you'll be playing him as your best hitter. So in this case, it would be either orange or yellow, whichever one you want to use. The strikeout would be a 6, so if you roll a 6, you get on base if you use your OB bench player. But you can only use those bench players once per game, so you have to be very strategic as far as when you use them. And other than that, this is a pretty interesting game, I think. I think this should have won the award. When you see what did win the award, we'll cover that later. You're going to see what I mean when I say, just like the Oscars, the best game did not win. So, home team wins. They managed to keep the lead before the 9th inning. So if you actually want to play this game in public against an opponent, come to our subreddit Card Game Meetups. Post your city, post what games you know, what games you want to play, and where you want to play them at. Do click under the description, under the show more in the description. You'll find all sorts of YouTube channels that I enjoy, the links for this game where you can print up the sheet, the rules, and a link to a Discord server where you can talk about this game and dice games and card games all day, every day. It's a fun place, so do call up your friends and let them know you're interested in playing some card games. They might say yes, and they might say no, but either way, making the effort might be necessary to have a future with card games. Do like and subscribe and share these videos with others that you know love playing card games, and do vote in this month's poll for Game of the Month. I want to thank today's musicians, and I'll see you next video.